What's up in War Eagle War Report family? You got Ike Jones. We are back with another morning drop. Today, we are talking about the rush defense. Specifically, want to get into this defensive line unit for Auburn this coming season. Question marks out there. Let's talk about it right here. Y'all know how we do War Report style. Let's drop it on them.
You are now listening to the War Report. Drop.
Morning drop Friday, August the 18th. Ike Jones, B. Will.
Yeah.
In here talking a little defensive line for Auburn University. The day after the announcement of the starting quarterback for Auburn University, congrats once again to young Peyton Thorne. Going to be starting QB for Auburn. But today we're not talking about QB. We talked about that yesterday. Go watch the reaction show from yesterday if you want to get our thoughts on that. Today we're talking defensive line. I know a lot of people are still talking quarterback today, probably. But there's plenty more time to discuss the quarterback position. We will definitely let Mike G and C weigh in on that on Sunday. But today, B. Will and myself talking a little defensive line. B. Will, how you feeling this Friday morning?
Feeling all right. It's Friday. Reason to be happy. Reason to be excited. It's unfortunately about to get real hot again. We had a couple of days of reprieve from the sweltering heat, but it's back. I don't want to think about that yet, though. It's not hot yet. Let's talk about this defensive line, man.
Yeah, we're going to get into the defensive line unit. You guys need to be doing the necessary as you funnel in here. That sharing the video, get more people involved with the conversation. If you haven't liked it already, go ahead and like the video. Subscribe to the channel if you're just kind of breezing through and seeing what we got going on. And if you want to, do a screen capture of a video of what we got going on, let me know which part you want to do so I can make sure I got my good camera face ready for it and all that kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, yeah, that was a solid shot. I can't help it. I couldn't help myself, man. Anyway, all right. Defensive line. We know that it has been a problem for Auburn the last few years, stopping the run. Particularly last year, it seemed like it had gotten better in year one under Harsin, and then year two, it just fell completely apart. Listen, I don't know what the sauce was. Was it the D-line coach change? Was it all Zacoby McClain holding it together? But it was bad last year. There's no two ways about it. Auburn was not good against the run last year. We got mashed.
Yeah. It was
and that was disappointing for me because I thought that we were going to come out there and be strong against the run. I made overtures about people being crazy, saying Auburn was going to be soft up the middle, and they were right. We were not handling business in that front seven to be able to stop nearly anybody from running the ball however they felt like they wanted to.
Yeah, it was embarrassing. I think that Penn State game was embarrassing.
Penn State was embarrassing.
Yeah.
Ohio State. Ole Miss ran over us. Arkansas ran over us.
Arkansas was really embarrassing.
Yeah, Arkansas that was a team that had given up. They were just done. They came out in the second half of that game and they were just like, all right.
Yeah, it was it may have been mostly linebacker play. I remember after the after the Arkansas game, they made certain players available for discussion for media availability. And the players were like, we spent the bye week figuring out how to trust ourselves. We have to trust each other to make the right reads, and guys are out of position because they're trying to compensate for what they think other guys aren't going to do. But all of that is just a symptom of, man, he's not good enough. I got to do something. So let me do too much. And now I'm not good enough. And job's not getting done because, man, I don't know if it was the coach, but I know that the linebacker room had been lacking since Zacoby McClain left. He really may have been holding it together. And I think Chandler Wooten to a certain extent as well. We didn't have those guys, man. We just didn't have the guys. Now, some of that was about the defensive line for sure. We didn't have a pass rush either. All right. So
Right.
defensive line pressure and consistency off the edge was not what it could be. Derek Hall can't play both sides of the line.
Right.
It's one guy. He can play one side. Kobe Wooden was injured for a good part of the season. And Marcus Harris, I still think he took a small step forward in 2022 from 2021, but he wasn't, it's not like he's Derek Brown down there. You know what I'm saying? We didn't have a single can't miss, I'm going to make the whole game different for everybody defensive line prospect on the interior. We didn't have
I mean, Colby was a guy I think that was doing work when he got his opportunities, but
Right.
yeah, it was inconsistent play across that defensive front, man. There were games where it just didn't seem as if we knew what to do to be able to stop what the other team was trying to do up front.
Yeah.
And it showed, in my opinion, most in second halves of games and in the pass rush. Like it's just our pass rush was just ineffective with the front four that we were bringing last year. And I don't know what the remedy for that is going to be for this coming season, but I do know that it has not seemed to be better. But it's hard to gauge that, right? Like, do you know if the offensive line is playing better, or is the defensive line still just not where it needs to be? In the scrimmage most recently, Coach Free said that the defense was dominating the second half of the scrimmage, but all accounts say that they also stopped running tempo the second half of scrimmage. So when the defense got its opportunities to catch its breath a little bit, that's when they started to exert their will or change the trajectory of how that practice was going or that scrimmage was going. The question is, how many teams are going to run tempo against us? Is that going to be a problem for us all year? If a team is running tempo, then we can't, that was an issue with Penn State, right? Penn State was running tempo. Arkansas tempo team, Ole Miss tempo team, Mississippi State tempo team, right? Are we going to run into teams that are going to run tempo against us? And that means that there's doom for our defensive units being able to execute at a quick enough pace that allows them to be good.
Well, on top of that, we also were just in the first 2 weeks of camp, and it's hot as hell outside. And Hugh Freeze even thought that was part of the reason he saw the wide receivers loafing. It's because the heat may have affected. He said, this is the hottest camp I've ever been in. He said maybe the heat got to him, but listen, we can be practicing and just go in and cool down in the facility at practice. Like, we're not going to do that in game day. It's going to be hot. Guys got to get back in. They got to get in shape. They got to get ready for these conditions because we're going to be playing in these conditions. And I would imagine that guys at that size on the defensive line, you run in tempo and it's low 90s with a heat index of the high 90s, low 100s. It makes a difference. It makes a difference. So that could have something to do with why they did better once the tempo stopped as well. But to your point, why wouldn't teams just run tempo?
Yeah.
We go out to Cal, they think, well, it's going to be nighttime, thankfully. So that won't be as much of an issue. But tempo could be a problem, or heat could be a problem. Heat and conditioning not being what it should be during the first week and a half of camp could be the problem. We got 2 more weeks to grind it out to get better at this. And as they start playing games, they'll be in better playing shape. We're not going to have to really test our mettle against UMass as far as getting stressed to the limit. They're not going to push us to the limit. They shouldn't be able to push us to the limit. I don't think we'll really get tested there. We got a night game against Cal. I don't think we'll get tested as far as conditioning and heat out there. And then when we come back home, we play Samford. We shouldn't get pushed to our limit there either. They've got the rest of this camp and then honestly 3 weeks for their conditioning to catch up. I know they want a lot of depth in the defensive line room, and we do have depth in the defensive line room. Let's make that clear. But the effort not being what it was from the wide receivers and maybe the heat affecting the defensive line, I don't expect that to be an issue unless it's still, low 90s and a 2:30 game when we play Texas A&M, which I guess is not impossible because, it's the world we live in right now. So then it could be an issue. But we got some weeks. We got just over a month to get that nailed down between conditioning and finding the right rotation of guys. So they learn how to give their best effort on every play because people going to hit us with it, man. We're going to hit other teams with it. It's an advantage. Why wouldn't teams hit us with it? It's part of the game.
I mean, but that's one of the good things that they have been seeing tempo this entire camp, right? So it shouldn't catch anybody off guard. So hopefully the teams that we face just aren't as proficient at running tempo as our Auburn offense has seemed to be when they're going fast. Because again, all reports that we've heard from scrimmages are that when Auburn's offense is running tempo, they're dominating, particularly in the run game during those scrimmages. So we'll see how it goes when we get into live action with them. If you haven't already, make sure that you share this video and like the video while you're in here. We're going to get into taking a look, though, at what our defensive line unit should look like coming up for this season. We'll look at the defensive group that we have out here. And starting with Mosiah Nasili Kite, 6'2", 285 senior, transfer from Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
Wilkie Denard, 6'3", 276, true freshman coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Darren Reed Jr., 6'3", 295, also a true freshman.
Yeah.
Marcus Harris, aforementioned, 6'3", 295 senior, former transfer from Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
Justin Rogers, who we'll get into in just a minute, 6'3", 346
Big man.
junior, transfer from Kentucky. Steven Johnson, the 6'3", 311 freshman. Big dude. He was the late flip from Arkansas there.
That's right. Yeah.
Zacchaeus Walker, 6'4", 294 junior. Lawrence Johnson, 6'2", 310 senior. That's the transfer from Purdue. Quintrell Jamison Travis, 6'4", 320 junior, transfer from JUCO, recently added during the summer. Jason Jones, 6'6", 338. Big dude. Junior, the former transfer from Oregon. Not pictured here or on this graphic are, of course, we talked about him before, but we don't have on here just because I didn't have room and I didn't feel like doing the 2 pages. I apologize for my laziness today. But Keldrick Falk, who was in the Jack Room previously, 6'6", 288 freshman. He is on the defensive line as a defensive end now, so no longer listed as a Jack. Also not pictured here is Aniche Sledge, the 6'2", 311 redshirt freshman.
Yeah.
Big dude. I'm expecting big things from him coming up. Joe Frazier Jr., the redshirt freshman, 5'11", 272, smaller guy
man.
there. Godwin Owolabi. I always mess his name up. I apologize, Godwin Owolabi, the sophomore, 6'2", 320, and then Garrison Walker, 6'1", 296 junior. So this is who we have here in our rotational players for our defensive line. Again, the only person who is not listed here that I anticipate being a rotational player would be Aniche Sledge, and then potentially Garrison Walker out of that group. But thoughts on the defensive line unit that we have listed here?
So far, I'm looking at this list, and I would ask you, who's elite? Do we have anybody elite? Somebody that demands 2 blocks, that can fight through a double team and still pressure the quarterback. Do we have that? Do we have a massive can't miss prospect on this defensive line? The last one I can think of course, being Derek Brown, was just the quintessential difference maker from the inside. Kobe Wooden was kind of an end, kind of but we had a couple guys that kind of switched between inside and in, both Marcus Harris and Kobe Wooden. Do we have a big body? And I know we have the big bodies, both Jason Jones and Justin Rogers. Are either one of them elite? That's the question. That's what I want to ask. Because when inside is established and that player is elite, everything gets easier. It's crazy in football. Like, I know, Ike, you know this because you played basketball, and I even remember when you coached the intramural basketball team, girls team at Auburn, which was a lot of fun. And when you're playing defense, you're practicing defense, you're trying to teach somebody the zone, right? You've got players on the outside passing the ball from side to side. And everybody's supposed to be connected. And the coach is teaching, here is how what they do affects your movement and what you're supposed to do.
Right.
So that there aren't any holes in the zone. There's a hole in the zone, but when you account for it and you make the shot really difficult. In football, one guy being really good at something makes your job easier. If that guy is right next to you, even better. If I've got a guy who if offenses can't take their eyes off of him and they have to give him attention, my job got easier because I'm not going to get double team. You can't double team everybody. I've got 4 defensive linemen down here. Even if I've got 3, you've got to put bodies on just about everybody. If I bring 4, then you're in trouble if one of my guys is elite, which is why our defensive line in 2019 was so good. Derek Brown demanded too much attention.
Right.
Everybody was eating. Well, except for Big Cat Bryant.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. Yeah, 2 draft picks on that defensive line, and you still ain't getting no production. That's crazy. So it makes me ask that of this room right here. Is anybody elite? Do we have a difference maker to the extent that when he's out there, everybody else's job gets easier? Because not only does that make it easy for the other defensive linemen, the strong side defensive end and the jack, the secondary gets to eat because the quarterback's in trouble. He's nervous. He's sailing passes. We're going to get some intercepted passes. We're going to get some fumble, some strip sacks. We're going to get so much more production from the defense if anybody down there is elite. That's my question. Now, to this point, we've seen everybody on this list play, not necessarily at Auburn, but we've got tape of these guys. Nobody, based on their performance last season, was elite. Now, that's based on last season. Players can get better. We know players can get better. They usually, if the coaching is sufficient, the players improve, even if only marginally. Can anybody on this list make the next step from good to very good, from okay to good, or from very good to elite? That's the question I want to ask. If anybody's got that chance, I think it would be Jason Jones because he was injured last year.
He was.
I know for a fact he had an injured arm almost pretty much the entire year. So can he take that next step? Is he the body? I know he's the adult in the room and the leader. I know that already.
Right.
Physically, can he be the difference maker that we've seen a Derek Brown be? That's what I want to know. Can Marcus Harris take his game to the next step? Who is also somebody I think very highly of, and he's going to get drafted in the next NFL draft. Can he be elite, though? Those are the 2 guys that I would say, if we've got a chance to be elite, those are they right there. To absorb all these offensive linemen and make it very easy for linebackers to clean up, those are the 2 guys I would look for to make that possible.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Marcus Harris is definitely a guy that you'll have to look at and say he can be a difference maker. He, in that first season that he was with Auburn, lived in the backfield. He disappeared at some points, in my opinion, during the 2022 season, but 2021, I was really high on what Marcus Harris could bring in, and I'm hoping he can, as we start to figure out kind of what the rotation is, and listen, that was a big problem last year. We didn't have enough depth in rotation because of injuries that were happening, and we just had undersized guys trying to play in different positions that they weren't really suited for. And it made it difficult for us to be consistent with our ability to stop the run. But a healthy Jason Jones will be helpful. A healthy Zacchaeus Walker will be helpful, right? And then Marcus Harris being able to play up to expectations. I like the fact that, and we added Mosiah Nasili Kite, right? Like, I think that he is a guy who has played on the interior at the ACC in Maryland, right? It wasn't necessarily the same kind of big boy ball. And then Lawrence Johnson, another guy who's played at Purdue.
Wait, Maryland's the Big Ten now, right?
Oh, that's right. They are the Big Ten now. I forgot Maryland.
So he saw a couple of elite.
Wait a minute, are they Big Ten? I forget. West Virginia, Maryland, all of them make no sense to me where they are. In
West Virginia's the Big 12. With,
that's what I'm saying. Like, I always get
UCF confused. And Houston. Yeah,
I always get confused with that. But yeah, you're right. And then Purdue with so they've been able to play some big boy ball. And they're bigger guys that hopefully will be able, because to me it's going to be the nose tackle. Right? Like, who is going to be the plugger in the middle of that guy in the middle of that defensive line that's going to be the guy that you said is commanding double teams, is gobbling up blockers so that the linebackers can flow more freely? Who's going to be the guy that if you don't double team, he's going to be disruptive and being able to shed and get penetration and make sure that they're disrupting whatever's happening with whether it's a run play or putting pressure directly in the face of the quarterback. Um, I think Jason Jones, size wise, he fits the profile just because he's a big body, but I think he plays better at a D tackle slot, right?
Yeah.
I think that he moves really well for a guy his size. And what he wants to be able to do is get off of blocks and go engage. Now, he does a really good job of stacking and shedding and getting in there. But I think if we can find, if Mosiah Nasili Kite, if Lawrence Johnson, and if Justin Rogers, who we'll talk about in just a minute, can get that nose tackle locked in, then you're going to have a good rotation of Jason Jones, Marcus Harris at the D tackle, D end, rotating in a Keldrick Falk and Darren Reed at those spots as well. I think then you have a really good, and then Quintrell Jamison Travis, I think is going to be the other guy that'll rotate in amongst those guys. If I were to pick, a 6-man rotation amongst the 3-man front that we'd have there, it probably would be Nasili Kite, Jason Jones, Marcus Harris, Jamison Travis, probably Lawrence Johnson. And then I again, not pictured here, Nietzsche Sledge, I think is going to be a factor in this. And then Zacchaeus Walker. I don't even know how many games I just gave, probably more than 6, but they're going to want to rotate 8 guys up there.
Are you surprised? So I've heard more about Zeke Walker this cycle than I have the previous 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I think he actually redshirted in 2020. I think he was a 2020 recruit. If I'm wrong, correct me, but I think Zeke Walker was a 2020 recruit. So he was here the first year. I think he was here the first year under Gus, and of course 2 years under Harsin. He never got any burn under Harsin.
2020 was his first year, correct?
Okay, so he is a redshirt junior or a COVID year junior. So he has 2 years of eligibility left.
Mm-hmm.
Are you surprised to hear more about him? We said this previously and even last night. I'm not taking anything that anybody did under Brian Harsin in 2022 as this is who they are. There was enough dysfunction to discount. So, hey, he didn't break through the lineup last year. Yeah, I'm not holding that against you, man. I thought that we had a lot of guys we should have put on the field for the defense last year. And as soon as Caddy took over, that's one of the first things that they did. They rotated more guys, and they got more guys in there. Now, it didn't result in a lockdown defense, but I do think the defense played better. So I'm not holding that against Zeke Walker that he didn't show up. But does it surprise you that he showed up in the rotation in camp, that he's being talked about more often with the defensive line rotation?
I mean, I think this is the first year that he's really even been healthy. Injury had really been an issue for him previously. And so I think that him being healthy and in there having a full off season where he's been able to contribute, well, not even necessarily full, because I don't know how much he's actually been healthy this off season, but I think that him being probably the healthiest that he's been since his freshman year is what is going to contribute to him getting more time. But to your point, I don't know what the issue was last year with our confidence in rotating guys in, because it's clear that guys are gassed, but you're not playing the other guys in there, even though they don't have a ton of experience. It's like, man, we talked about this yesterday when we were talking about the quarterback. Like, is there anybody else that's out here that can do this job better? Right. Because the guys that are in here aren't getting it done. So, like, can we see somebody else off of this bench come in and do, like, I thought that so much about linebacker play last year, where I was just like, come there, you're kidding me that nobody else can do better than this. Like, that just doesn't feel right to me when some of these guys seem super talented.
Yeah.
Somebody else can come in here and do better than this. I felt like that sometimes with our defensive line, not so much because I didn't feel like they were talented, but they just needed a break, man.
Yeah.
Like, let somebody else come in and spell this guy for a couple of plays, and then let's rotate somebody else in. I just don't think that we had a good confidence in rotation in those guys, and what they were dealing with some health issues. But I do think Zeke Walker is more healthy now, and he should have his ability to come in and play. At 6'4", 294, that reads like more of a defensive end guy. So hopefully he can come in and be a first 2 down pass rusher / supplemental rush defender type of guy for the team. But Yeah, I don't know why this offseason his name has seemed to come up a little bit more than it has previously, other than, I guess, like I said, the health in the offseason being better than it had been previously.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So let's take a little break right here. We will get back into your questions, comments, whatever you guys are thinking about over here in the comments section. Quick shout out to the sponsor of today's morning drop, which is Rogue Shop. Of course, rogueshop.com. You can head there for America's #1 online dispensary. Use code RAPPORT to be able to get a little something off of your purchase. That lets them know the guys at the War Report sent you over there. Rogueshop.com is America's #1 online dispensary. You all are America's #1 Auburn fan base.
You know,
online.
I want to shout out my the guy, Richard, Rogue Shop.
Yeah.
Co-owns it with his wife. Listen, man, I got on there to do some purchasing, right? Someone was up with the website at the time, and I was like, I'm gonna chat in the help. I was like, hey, Richard, it's your boy B Will, War Report. It's like, hey, man, we love and appreciate the sponsorship. I was like, hey, we appreciate you. Look, I'm trying to get my products, man. And someone with the site. So he helped me out, man. He was in the chat. He was like, oh, man. So I helped him out a little bit. I was like, all right, I can do this, but I can't do this. Got my order through. It already shipped. Man, he's sat there with me on the chat like, no, we're going to get this right. He made sure that everything I wanted to go to buy got bought. So shout out to Richard. Thank you for the help. Thank you for the product. Even made me a recommendation for something because one thing was out of stock. He was like, it'll be back, but you really want this. I said, appreciate that information. So
yeah, Richard's A1, man. He has great customer service. And if you ever hit him up on the site, they're quick to respond. That's why they are America's #1, because he keeps everybody with whatever it is that they need to get. He'll get you right, and they'll get you good recommendations for whatever it is that you need. So shout out to he and his wife for running the Rogue Shop in a very professional manner.
Yes.
Let's get over here into these comments and see what you all are talking about today. We will get this kicked off with B Will's forehead saying, I can't tell if our O-line is just really good, or the running backs are just really good, or our D-line is bad.
Okay, so I've been thinking about this since I heard the intel on the first scrimmage. Hurry up. Offense killed it. Running backs going crazy. All right. Defense winded. It worked. Once they slowed down, the defensive line racked up a lot of tackles for loss and a couple of would-be sacks as well. Hey, man, that's encouraging. The difference may have just been tempo in the heat.
Mm-hmm.
And our our front seven is actually good. That could be the case. I don't think there's any way to know yet because we haven't put rubber to the road as far as facing opponents that, are actually trying to stop us. The coaches are still setting things up in practice in a way to test both sides of the ball. So, yeah, you run tempo so you can put some strain on your defense. And if you're the defensive coach and you want to see what your offense can do, you're going to put them in a position where maybe you can't read. Maybe you do call a late shift. Maybe you do say, hey, it's going to look like man, but we're going to throw some zone in there for him. Right. And expect the quarterback to adjust and see what decision he makes. That's going to stop with UMass. Okay. We will know what we have on defense once we play. Probably we'll start to see it when we play Cal. Mm-hmm. And we'll know for sure when we play Texas A&M. I was thinking if the offensive line was really that much better than the defensive line,
Texas A&M might run tempo this year too.
They might, but see, they've got a redshirt freshman. I don't know if he may have burned their red shirt. They've got enough things going on brand new that they might not be complete yet.
Max Johnson might actually win that starting job back.
I wouldn't be mad at that.
Yeah.
I don't know if he has as high a ceiling as Wakeman. I don't know if they're the same guy or what. We'll see. But we know that we've got some question marks, but I'm not so sure if the defensive line and linebackers, if our front seven was as much a concern as I think they looked in spring, then I think once they slowed down tempo in the scrimmage, the offense would have been able to eat just as well, but they didn't. The defensive line started to get the back. Hugh Freeze said, I thought they got the best of the offense once we stopped running tempo. Hey, well, that's something. That's something because these offensive linemen are still better than they were last year. So I don't think it's entirely the defensive line that deserve to be on the field with these guys. I think it's the defensive line has more work to do. We've got probably a difference to cover. Let me say this. We probably have fewer elite players in that room than we've had in years past. I think we said this plenty of times. Derek Hall, Kobe Wooden, and Echo Leota will all be on final rosters. They're all making an impact in preseason so far. You don't lose that and just look normal in a couple of months. It's going to take some time, but I think we'll find our footing, and we probably have some good production here, both at defensive line and at linebacker. I expect both positions to look better.
Yeah, I can agree to that. I can agree with that. Stephen Riley comes in and says, I think it was linebacker play. Speaking of what the issue was last year with our run defense.
I think so too. I still don't think the defensive line was elite, but linebacker play would have gone a long way if it was better.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the defensive line in some schemes, they're there to occupy blocks. Linebackers are there to clean up. We just didn't have our cleanup hitters out there actually doing work. Yep. So it didn't help. It didn't help for sure. Big Gap jumps in and says, looked like we were getting smashed in the A-Day game as well.
Yeah, A-Day wasn't pretty. It was not pretty.
Yeah. The rain. I think the most disappointing thing, and I've said this before about the A-Day game, was the fact that with the rain, you knew they were going to run the ball, and you still couldn't stop it. So it didn't give me a lot of confidence that we were going to be able to go out there and execute the game plan against a team that you don't know for sure is going to be running the ball. So if they're going to come and attack us with any balance, are we just going to be looking lost out there the whole game? So I do have my questions about our ability to stop the run right now. Hopefully we start to put it together, and I don't know where that's going to land game one, but I will be keeping a close eye on that as we get into that first game. Jonathan Boyson, we got some big men up front this year. I'm hoping it's much improved. D tackle needs to demand double teams, and then the linebackers got to tackle. Yeah.
They got to.
I think the most disappointing thing, not being out of position because that happens, was when we were there and we didn't make tackles last year. That frustrated me so much, watching guys just absolutely whiff on tackles that they had people dead to rights on.
Yeah, that was frustrating. We know Steiner had some trouble with that. Papo had some trouble with that, which makes it, it kind of negates your speed and your ability to pick up ground if when you get there, you can't get the dude to the ground. And the inverse, which was the Kobe McLean, he was not the fastest. He was not the biggest. He was not the strongest, but he was the best tackler and instinctive linebacker that we've had on this team in the last 5 years. He just was. And it made a difference. You saw the difference when he was there and when he wasn't. Whether or not we have that type of linebacker here remains to be seen. I don't know. I don't think we really got a good look at Cam Riley.
No,
I'm hoping he gets some burn.
I think that he was playing well early, but then he got hurt midseason, and then when he came back, he was a step slower, and they were rotating him in kind of differently than they were using him earlier in the season. Hopefully, he can remain healthy because he is the kind of the prototypical linebacker as far as size, but he's got to show it on the field this year. This is definitely a prove it year for him. To be able to figure out whether or not he can make the transition to the next level and play in the NFL. Yep. Stephen Riley echoes what we were just saying. We need to have a tackler and didn't have that. Guys got to get there and make the tackle. A couple of statements here from people about why they felt like the run defense was bad. Lawrence Robinson says also the fact that the offense was a 3-and-out machine exasperated the D-line issues.
Yeah.
It's a problem when your offense can't stay on the field and the defense has just been out there for 7, 8, 9, 10 play drive. Offense gets the ball back. They only move the ball. Man, those times in the last really 4 years, maybe 5 years, where the defense would do its job and get a turnover, or you get a long punt return or something where you flipped the field finally, and then the offense either goes 3-and-out or they end up with a 3 or 4 play field goal when they only needed 30 or 40 yards to get a touchdown. Were some of the most frustrating things for me. I remember, what game was that where we got a fumble recovery. Was it the Oregon game, that first game where we got the fumble recovery and they got all the way down to like the 2-yard line? I think it was Derek Brown that got hawked down on like the 2, and then we ended up kicking a field goal.
That's right. That's right. I do remember that. Yeah.
I was like, bro, like, what are we doing? Like that's the kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That just it drove me crazy. I see somebody saying here, Big Cat, he had one of those where he scooped up a fumble and got down inside the 20. They said it was a Florida game where that happened with Derek Brown. Like
that was okay. Yeah, that was a Florida game. I remember wishing like that was the only way we were gonna score.
Yeah, man. I was like,
we didn't score a touchdown until garbage time in that game because
bro,
it was awful. It was awful.
Like you needed like 3 yards to score, man. I'm not gonna lie. That's the season where I kind of got off the Gus bus. I was like, you know what, man? I don't know if he's the guy. I don't know if he's the guy. I think I got off of the Gus bus right there. I was just
I was already at the station watching you get off. I was like, come on.
Yeah.
We need to get off this bus.
I still was riding with him a little bit up until I think 2019 was it for me, bro. I was just like, yup.
Yeah. But you know what though? A good indicator of how good that defense was that even with the offense giving them nothing, diddly squat at LSU, at Florida, that was another game where we didn't show up well at all. The defense kept us in those games deep into the third quarter, early fourth quarter. Like there was at any point between the first quarter and halfway through the fourth, a touchdown would have changed the complexion of the game. And we couldn't give it to them.
Yeah, it hurt my soul, man. It hurt my absolute soul to watch that happen.
Yeah.
Stephen Riley jumps back in. Bad offense plus no D line rotation equals a tired defense. Definitely is a recipe for disaster. Chris S jumps in. He's also worried that we may not fully grasp the Ron Roberts system in year 1. That's fair. I think it's fair for guys to not really understand what they need to be doing. I don't know that that's a problem necessarily for the front 7, but it should be a more complicated thing for the back end guys. If you see me talk about this, there's actually a really good breakdown on this. If you go and look up, there's a guy who's actually doing a breakdown of the Baylor defense under Dave Aranda. But Ron Roberts is the defensive coordinator who actually kind of pioneered that defense, and Dave Aranda's running that same system. But there's, and I think I linked it on a previous video. He's breaking down the defense and how they convert, what the cornerback is doing to a man coverage based upon what the leverage is on the outside. And he talks about how they're utilizing safeties to be edge defenders in certain situations, crashing down, and actually using linebackers to crash, particularly against teams that run some sort of read option or RPO scheme. It's a really good breakdown that he did. I did a little bit of study on his film breakdown and some stuff that we did in our film breakdown on Ron Roberts. If you're a patron, you can go back and watch that. But it is complicated. It is something where you kind of have to understand whose responsibility it is to be the edge defender, what my gap integrity is on certain things. And that takes communication and it takes reps. So it's going to take a little bit of time. And that's the thing I think I'm worried about the most is it going to look ugly early because guys are still trying to figure it out?
Probably. And for that, we probably not great that we faced 2 of the 4 most talented. Well, I'll take that back. We played 3 of the 4 most talented teams within the first 6 games of the season: LSU, A&M, and Georgia. They were back to back. I mean, we got a bye week between, I think, Georgia and LSU, but that's a tall task. That's a lot of talent. That's a lot of time. So we could have drop a couple games in there. We could be 4-2, possible. I don't want to see it, but we could be 3-3, and then people are writing us off. But really, it just takes time. And then we come back a lot stronger by the end of the season and surprise some people, which is what I hope happens. But yeah, anytime, I don't know if my boy John Brandon's still out here, continuity It's not
I haven't
something that
seen
we
John
have.
today, so I don't know. Yeah.
He was here early, I think.
All
Continuity is not something we have on defense. And to hear the advantage of Kevin Steele as a DC was he was going to make things simple for you. And the longer that you're there, you start figuring it out. It's helped even further if you have some elite players that make things easier for everybody else. But when it comes to what we have right now, defensive line, again, this is us projecting and assuming. I don't think we have elite difference makers in the defensive line room that we saw in the graphic. So I'm going to assume it's going to take some time. Now, we can still be assignment sound. That you can be.
right.
You can be a big enough body and a strong enough dude that you occupy your blocks, the linebackers do their job and clean up. And we're going to come up against some good OCs here in the SEC. Yeah, we
Sure.
are. And they're going to make things complicated. Hey, if that dude broke down the Baylor defense, we got OCs that know how to break down the Baylor defense, know how to attack it. So, yeah, it's going to be it's a work in progress. It's going to be a work in progress. What I hope is that the experience that we have, the maturity that we have in these rooms makes it a work in progress that's not just entirely ugly while we're getting it together. That's what I hope.
Yeah. Hopefully, we will see some improvements as the year progresses. James Barnett says, is it possible the D-line is underrated? We haven't seen them in the system. Maybe the scheme is the key. Thoughts? It's possible. I think that there are guys that have yet to show what they truly can do because they have either been injured or haven't been playing very much. But until I see it, I don't know what to do other than say, I don't know, because I haven't seen it yet. So definitely possible. I'm hoping that it really is going to be a turnaround of that defensive front.
Yeah, me too.
We've been saying we were going to talk about this, but now is a good enough time. Need Justin Rogers' big body on the field. Justin Rogers.
Yeah.
Thoughts on that young man?
So reports are saying that he's big, which we knew, but he may be a little too big. Now, I just checked, and his playing weight at Kentucky last season was 331, 332. He came in at 340 something this fall for the fall camp, and I don't think that's where they want him playing at.
Mhm.
Maybe he's a little out of shape, if you believe reports, and he's not even projected to be the starter. Now, we get excited about star ratings. He was a 5-star rated kid coming out of high school, but at Kentucky, he was not an elite prospect. He improved.
Yeah, he
improved.
He was a 3-star, like you said. Yeah.
He improved over his 3 years at Kentucky, or just 2 years at Kentucky?
I think he was there for 3. Go ahead, keep talking. I'll check it.
Yeah. So improvement is encouraging. You want guys who can take coaching, get the experience, and then start to improve their game. I don't know if he was injured coming out of the spring, so he had some delay in being able to get conditioned and get in shape. I don't know the exact story with that, so I'm not going to make any assumptions. I just know that he's not where they want him to be right now. Is that a little discouraging? Maybe. Again, we got a pretty soft schedule for the first 3 weeks. I mean, you could say Cal is really far away and it's a late game, but talent is talent, man. If you're stronger, if you're bigger, if you're faster, we should win that game. All right. We have more talent. We should be able to win that game. I am less concerned about guys being ready for game 1 than I am guys being ready for game 4. If the locker room and the culture, which Hugh Freeze has made a priority for himself to get right so far since he's been here, if that's correct, then what I think will happen is that when the season starts, and even now in fall camp, guys are taking it seriously and they're accepting the challenge of improving themselves and fighting for their playing time. That's not going to turn down once the season starts, especially if you had some aspirations to get to the next level. You got to get on the field and you got to get some tape, buddy. Justin Rogers transferred. You ain't going nowhere else.
Right.
You here for the next year. So you fight through here where there isn't a Derek Brown in this room. You should be able to fight through here. You take that challenge on so you can get on the field and you can show what you can do. I expect him to be able to do that. If he's late getting to the party, okay, I understand. Catch up, prove it in practice, and get on the field and contribute. Do we want him to be looking elite in camp so we can think about it and be more assured about the run defense? Sure, yes, of course we do. If that's not our reality, then he's got to step it up. So when we get to SEC play, we can have some assurances about what type of defensive line that we have, what type of depth we have at nose, we need him to be an impact player, and hopefully he's up for the challenge and he'll arrive in time to help us out when we really need him.
Yeah. He has not been, to your point, in the best of shape so far, and he hasn't been out there proving to be an elite guy in practice. Hopefully, as he rotates in during games when he's needed, he will get to that place. He's a guy who I came in with high hopes for, though, for this season. And right now, I don't know what to think of the reports coming out of camp. But hopefully, this is just him working through some stuff. I do know I think he was injured a little bit. And so that slowed his progress a little as well. So hopefully he's working through it and he's ready to get back out there and make it happen. Kevin Abernathy asked, how do you get off the Gus bus? He's asking me. In 2019, we went 9-3 with a true freshman quarterback, only lost on the road at Florida, Georgia, and Burrow LSU. We had a lot of promise after beating Alabama that year. Kevin, it's because I watched games. I watched us struggle on offense, even in the games that we won.
Yeah.
And a lot of it had to do with the fact that Gus was just unwilling to make adjustments to things that were happening.
Or that he chose a true freshman quarterback over a Malik Willis.
Like, I'm not even mad at the choosing the true freshman quarterback thing. Like, Malik said he wasn't ready out there, and I'll take him at his word on that. Bo Nix wasn't ready either, right? So neither of those quarterbacks were ready there. And I just don't, our offense wasn't good that year. Like, I just don't, there's no two ways about that. It just was it was not a good offense. And it was a repeat of a very sputtering offense consistently over the years prior to that as well. 2017, you had a peak, but like, it was up and down offensively. And that was the year that I was just like, I don't know that he's ever going to change. He's going to continue to be this guy. And he needs a quarterback savior to come in here and make this work.
Right.
I've said this plenty of times. I don't think Gus Malzahn did Bo Nix any favors.
None.
I think he set him up for failure, man.
Yep.
He set the expectation bar super high about he's going to come in here, he's going to win championships and Heisman trophies, all this kind of stuff. And then he didn't do him any favors. He didn't have a system around him that was going to allow him to succeed. He didn't have wide receivers that were around him that were going to really be difference makers. He didn't go get offensive linemen that were going to protect him and be able to make sure the run game was going to be something that he could lean on. That offense looked atrocious, and he was the offensive guru. Yes. And then he wouldn't even give up play calling duties when he wasn't doing it well. Yes, I was off of the Gus bus 2019. That was it for me. Knox Cleveland,
That's right.
Knox Cleveland, from the guys we had last year, who do you expect to have the biggest improvement?
From the guys we had last year, let's bring that list back up. Let's see. So I know we got Zeke Walker. Improvement would be, I mean, if he does anything, it's an improvement because he's been hurt. He hasn't played. Marcus Harris. I expect between Jason Jones and Marcus Harris. Jason Jones and Marcus Harris have the combination of experience and perspective, as in, all right, my name's about to get called. Like I'm playing for May now. I need these eyes on me. I need to secure my starting position, and I need to show out, and I need to produce. Under those circumstances, I expect both of these guys to play very well this season. Of course, barring injury, but it's football. You know what I mean? I expect them to show out. That's why I expect to take the biggest leap of the guys who were on the team last year.
Biggest jump for me, because this is going to seem like a cop-out, because he didn't play very much. I think if the hype around Zeke Walker is real, this should be the biggest jump on this team. I don't know what kind of relative floor to ceiling there is for Jason Jones. A healthy Jason Jones, I think, will be a little bit more dominant if, again, he's allowed to play, which I think is a better, more natural position for him, which is D tackle. So if somebody else is able to come in and play nose tackle a little bit so he doesn't have to camp out at the nose, then I think Jason Jones will have a really good year. But I'm hoping to see Zeke Walker make the biggest leap because we need someone else that's going to come in and be a pass rusher from a non-traditional pass rushing spot. The jack is where you expect the pass rush to come from. We need an interior pass rush guy that's going to be disruptive. Hopefully he can get back into that place, because that's the thing I think that people thought he was going to come in and provide from Auburn from the very beginning. A healthy Zeke Walker, I think, makes the biggest jump from where he has shown on the field, which is not very much, to where I hope he can be this year. All right, we are going to get out of here. We appreciate you guys dropping in with us as always. If you didn't know, the Rogue Shop is the sponsor of the Morning Drop. Make sure you head over to rogueshop.com using code RAPPORT. We will be back at you all potentially Saturday, maybe tomorrow. We'll see what happens with some of these announcements that are be coming up. But otherwise, we will be back at you Sunday talking a little bit more Auburn football. Shout out once again to the Auburn women's basketball team for winning all of their games over in Europe, doing their thing. Yeah, but we'll be back at you guys soon. In the interim, make sure that you go share the video, like and subscribe, all of the things necessary, and we'll be back at you guys soon. War Eagle. Peace.
Peace.
Drop.